I want to start tonight with a review on the last meditation session I ran, talking about the what, why, how of mindfulness. And then I'll talk some more about meditation theory. I might quiz you at the end like I did last time, but this time hopefully a bit more successful. So what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is a quality of the mind. It's simply undistracted attention, right? So it's not just about calming down or reducing stress in the moment. It's about teaching you to observe your own mind. What do I mean by undistracted? Mindfulness is a state of clear, non-judgmental attention to the contents of consciousness. We're paying close attention to the flow of our experience in each moment, moment by moment. The challenge is without modifying it, right? Without grasping at what is pleasant or pushing away what is unpleasant. So we're really doing less than you normally do. It's the act of being less distracted in the midst of everything that is already happening on its own. So it's not thinking more clearly, it's experiencing more clearly. And why do we do this? Why do we meditate? The punchline, if you remember from last time, is the quality of our mind determines the quality of our life. All right, that's kind of why we meditate. When we're meditating, we're training the mind to be happier, more content. That's the point. We already know what it's like to have an untrained mind. Even when things are fine, we spend our time thinking about what we have to do, what we want to do, what we wish we hadn't done. We spend very little time truly content and in the present. And because of this, we often fail to connect with the people around us. But mindfulness is a way to correct this, right? What we're doing is we're practicing breaking the habit of being lost in thought, thinking without realizing we're thinking. And not just while meditating, but during our daily life. So, how does meditation improve the quality of your mind? And therefore, the quality of your life, right? For example, anger. This is one that I resonate with, so I'll repeat that example. The anger you felt yesterday isn't here anymore. And if it arises based on you thinking about it, well, then once again, it will pass away, right? This is simple, but very liberating to understand deeply. If you're able to pay clear attention, instead of kind of repeating why you have every right to be angry, it becomes impossible to stay angry for very long. And, meditation won't stop you from being angry, but, you can learn to not stay angry, fearful, or embarrassed for very long. And the consequences between, the difference between spending moments in these negative states or days is huge. And that's what I mean by, your quality of life improves. If I was to generalize this example, the insight is changing how you respond to the world is just as good as changing the world itself. So, you can try to change the world. You can try to get everyone around you to behave like you want, or to not get sick or injured, or not get your favorite possessions from getting damaged. But try as hard as you might, the sources of stress, disappointment, embarrassment will always be there. So how does meditation work? Rather than change the world, you can look more closely at what you're doing with your mind and cease to respond in ways that create needless suffering. So hopefully by now, you are convinced that the mind plays a critical role in our well-being You keep coming back, so maybe something's working, something is making sense, and tonight I'll go in more depth about what is a high-quality life. But first, let's do a quick 10-minute sit. Sound good? Okay. Take a few minutes to sit comfortably and shift your attention from your thinking to the coming and going of your breath, just like we've done before. Allow your body and mind to settle. Now, instead of practicing your regular meditation technique, I would like you to sit quietly and let everything be the way it is. Don't focus or manipulate your attention in any way. Don't follow your breathing. Don't do anything in particular. Just let everything be. Without trying to change or avoid or get rid of anything. The fact is, your mind has no idea how to do this. It doesn't know how to let go. It only knows how to focus and hold on. But beyond the mind, there is a dimension of experience where letting go has already happened. This is your natural state of openness and receptivity. So you just need to rest back into the openness that is always already taking place. At first, you may find these instructions baffling or confusing, because we're so accustomed to using our attention. In meditation, like in life, we're adept at doing, but unfamiliar with non-doing. When I say, just let everything be the way it is, your mind takes it as an instruction to do something special. So instead, I would like you to consider it an invitation to rest in the openness that's always already taking place. Consider the sky, for example. It doesn't have to do anything to include the clouds, planes, birds, and the other objects that pass through it. By nature, the sky is open and all-inclusive. The same is true of your natural state of inherent wakefulness. Any effort to practice openness just takes you away from the innate openness of your natural state. Most of the time, our attention focuses on objects, the external environment, the body, thoughts, and feelings, and interprets them, creating an inner world of meaning that has little to do with the way things actually are. Instead, let go of this contraction around objects. Let go of the tendency to judge and interpret, and just relax back into awareness itself. Rest as the open, unconditional awareness in which experiences come and go. The operative word here is rest. No doing, no manipulation. This awareness is inherently quiet, inherently present, and still. It doesn't do anything. It simply welcomes what is, the way it is. Let yourself rest in this silent, open, unconditional awareness or presence. No effort, no manipulation, no doing, and no need to be constantly checking if you're doing it right. Just rest as awareness. Let go of all doing. And let everything be as it is, inside and outside. When you notice that your attention is no longer open and has become fixated on objects again, gently return to rest as awareness and let everything be as it is. continue to rest and allow. And you can slowly open your eyes. Okay, yeah, get comfortable. After some practice, let's go back to some theory. When I say the quality of your mind determines the quality of your life, it's sort of implying that you can have a low-quality life and a high-quality life, right? What is a high-quality life? Instinctively, we think about happiness and joy. We picture a life well lived to be, full of smiling-faced laughter, peaks of joy. We've absorbed this, through culture around us. Especially think of social media, seeing carefully crafted lives of people's, peak experiences. But we know that being continually at this kind of peak of joy is unattainable, right? So what's the alternative? What should we strive for to live a life well lived? Tonight, I'll talk about Buddhism's answer to this question. First, a disclaimer. As with every religion, there are lots of different interpretations. So when I talk about Buddhism tonight, I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who's listened to a bunch of Buddhism podcasts. So, I'm not an expert, is what I'm saying. And I'm not trying to make this a religious club. I won't be trying to convert anyone to podcast Buddhism. In fact, sometimes Buddhism is considered a philosophy rather than a religion. And that's what I'll be talking about tonight, more the philosophy side. It can be considered a philosophy because at the core of it are the teachings of the Buddha, and they don't require you to believe in any God or unprovable dogmas. Instead, the essence of his teachings was about reducing suffering, right, in your life, and he shared what he discovered out of compassion. So the story goes that Siddhartha Gautama became the Buddha, which means the enlightened one, in Pali, after his awakening, where he was liberated of all suffering. While he was actually meditating under a tree, hence the plants in the middle. So this is the origins of the practice we're doing tonight, but you don't have to believe that, awakening or being kind of fully liberated from suffering is possible to benefit from this, to benefit from some practice. So the Buddha was around the 5th to 4th century BCE, so quite a long time ago. These questions of, how to live a good life have been around, since the dawn of Homo sapiens, I guess. I don't know. And what is the Buddha's answers? Well, they can be found in the Adhidhamma. This is a series of texts that explain Buddhist psychology and philosophy. And in this, it states that the entire spiritual path rests on the development and cultivation of upekkha, which is upekkha is a Pali word. It was the language of the Buddha back then, which translates to equanimity. So what is equanimity? Equanimity is a state of mind that is balanced, calm, and non-reactive. So the entire spiritual path rests on the development and cultivation of this quality of mind. So it's not being kind of indifferent or disconnected. Those are kind of near enemies. but it's a beautiful state of mind. It's cool, restful, balanced. And it's not just for our sitting practice, but for our daily lives, for every moment in our lives. The Buddha explained that we were touched by what he called the 8 great vicissitudes of life. That's a big word for changes, I believe. The eight big changes, 8 great changes. So we have gain, loss, we have fame and disrepute, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. So without equanimity, it's like we're crashing into the changing circumstances of our lives. And these changes happen to all of us. So, for example, gain. You finally have a quiet space. So rare in Sanso, right? You immediately get attached to it. And then when someone inevitably disturbs that peace, oh, the loss is so awful. And then we start blaming them. Or we experience kind of high praise for a sick trick. And we like it. We want more. So I'm guilty of kind of trapping people into a long video of summiting Mount Yote. Talking about it wasn't enough praise. I want more, craving more. Check out my skiing. But when we have equanimity of the mind, we can ride these inevitable changes with ease, with balance, with confidence. So at this point, people say you need the lows to experience the highs, or vice versa. But according to Buddhism, these highs often lead to more suffering because we get attached to them and then we crave more of them, like in the praise example. That doesn't mean that equanimity, living a life equanimously, is boring. It's fully embracing the positive, wholesome emotions like gratitude, like loving kindness, like compassion, gratitude, loving kindness, compassion. It's cultivating a deeper and deeper sense of well-being. And that is how to live a good life according to Buddhism. That's the meditation. That's what we're training for in meditation. So it's helpful to understand what equanimity is kind of conceptually with like definitions, with words, but it's even better to understand it kind of experientially, having the first-hand taste of equanimity in the mind. In my experience, it took 8 days, day 8 of my first meditation retreat to taste it, but maybe tonight you'll taste equanimity. Let's sit for another 10 minutes. Go ahead and get comfortable. You may believe that you know what thoughts are, but do you really? Maybe you've been told that they are the result of nerve impulses in the brain, but what is your direct experience? Sit quietly, settle comfortably, and spend a few minutes being aware of the coming and going of your breath. Now shift your awareness to your thoughts. Thoughts are constantly arising and passing. In fact, we often complain that we're bombarded by thoughts, but we rarely stop to examine them, to explore them. They seem so real and solid, but when we turn towards them, we often find that they elude our grasp. So begin by noticing whether your thoughts are largely visual, auditory, do you tend to hear your thoughts or see them? Or a little of both? No doubt you find these questions strange. You may have never asked these questions of your thoughts before. Do your thoughts have colors and shapes? Size? Density? Volume? Where are your thoughts located? Do they seem to be happening inside your head, or outside, or somewhere else? Can you find them? Can you locate them? Where do your thoughts come from? Can you locate their source? We tend to think they arise from our past or our imagination. What are these things? Can we locate their source? And where do they go when they're no longer there? What happens to your thoughts when you try to examine them closely in this way? Do they stay still, or do they elude your investigation? Notice that each thought refers to another thought. So a thought about the past, or a thought about the future. Thoughts refer to thoughts, refer to thoughts. Thoughts about others, thoughts about ourselves. We're constantly referring to one another. They're constantly referring to one another. in this network of self-referential thoughts. And this network is the narrative we weave. It's the story we tell about our lives. But where is this supposedly solid, separate someone inside to whom these thoughts and feelings refer? Can you locate it? Is there a there there? Or is this apparent separate someone just a collection of more thoughts and feelings, constantly shifting and changing? Everything you take yourself to be, your ideas, your beliefs, your past history, your plans, aspirations, stories, feelings, preferences, etc., are merely thoughts arising and passing away. Ungraspable, non-locatable. Now ask yourself, who or what is aware of these thoughts and feelings? You can talk about your beliefs, your feelings, your memories, your ideas, because they're objects of your experience. But can you find the one who is aware of them, the ultimate subject? Can this subject become an object of your experience? What do you discover? Notice what you're left with when you can't find the one who is aware. How does this affect you? Rest in this not finding, not knowing, for a few moments. And when you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes. Okay. Now, I would like to talk about progress on the spiritual path. So earlier, I said that the entire spiritual path rests on the development and cultivation of equanimity. But we're not just developing equanimity when we're practicing. It's something we should be developing, throughout our lives by using equanimity as a philosophy of life or a guiding principle to help live a meaningful and fulfilling life. All right? Or to avoid wasting your life. That's another way to put it. Which is possible, right? It is possible to be on your deathbed and, regretting the life you lived, or a low-quality life in the example of the quality of your mind determines the quality of your life. right? It's possible to waste your life because we really spend our lives sort of learning how to live. We find a pattern of living that makes approximate sense, and then we tinker with it for decades. If you're lucky, you'll discover you can live the way you want. But even if you're lucky, you'll find that it's possible to want the wrong things, to be kind of lured into wasting your time and attention, to be captured by things that don't really matter. Even if you're lucky, happiness can be surprisingly elusive. So kind of consider this analogy. Imagine a sailor on a sailboat in the ocean. If that sailor doesn't have a target bearing or a kind of compass coordinate, whenever the wind changes, he'll just change the direction of his boat, catch the wind, and off he goes, right? Compare that to a different sailor who has a bearing and knows how to set the sails. When the wind changes, he'll try to set the sails differently, try to get as close as he can to that target bearing. And he might not always be going fast, but he will be getting closer to his target. The first sailor, following the wind, kind of represents the accidental pattern of living we find ourselves doing that we tinker with for decades. The second sailor has a target and the skills to get there, sort of like having the philosophy of life of equanimity and the skill of mindfulness to get there. Now you may be thinking, this sounds kind of interesting, but I suck at meditation, so this can't be for me. That happens often. We do this once a week, 20 minutes of practice. Would that be enough to get good at skiing or snowboarding? No, right? This is a new skill we're learning, and it takes lots of practice. So I want to end tonight with kind of a comparison between mindfulness progress to skiing and snowboarding kind of first-timer progression, something that we're familiar with. But another disclaimer, this is kind of a loose comparison that I sort of made up based on personal experience. In meditation, progression is not linear at all. So some days you might be carving down a red, and then other days kind of struggling on the magic carpet. But you might benefit from understanding what progress kind of on the spiritual path can look like. So when you're teaching snowboarding or skiing, what's the first thing you start with? Participation. What's the first thing you start with?
Introduction to equipment.
Okay. Someone else. How about stance? Stance. I got to follow my notes here. I'm not that flexible. Okay, stance. You've talked about material, you've pushed them down, and you need to talk about stance. What is meditation stance? What is the meditation equivalent? Well, it's trying to focus on your breath and then realizing that your mind is completely out of control. We're trying to stay on the breath, and then suddenly we kind of wake up, and we realize, whoa, I've been lost in thought for the past 2 minutes. That's stance. What's the next step when teaching skiing or snowboarding? Turning. Oh, no. How about heel slide slipping in skiing? Do we have any ski instructors? Yes. How about some wedge shape? Well, the meditation equivalent would be kind of learning that narrative voice in our minds never shuts up. It just always keeps on going. And it's learning just how kind of deeply ingrained this habit pattern of the mind truly is. Okay, what's next after that? What do you do after heel side slipping? Someone other than Tommy, what do you do? Falling leaf? Okay, yeah, falling leaf. And then skiing? Maybe some, what do my notes say? Some wedge turns. Okay. So the meditation equivalent would be, we're starting to look more closely at our thoughts, and we're starting to kind of observe some patterns. So what is our mind doing? So, for example, thinking about the past, kind of having a scenario in mind and then replaying it with like how we had wished we acted differently. Who has had that in their meditation? Just again and again and again, the same scenario, just like different outcomes. Or thinking about the future, kind of fantasizing, if only my life looked like this, then I could live happily ever after. But then again, that's the mind lying to us, right?
How can I match up to this meditation class next week?
What's after the wedge turn? What's after the diagonal side slipping? Okay. Tame dog. Okay. Well, the mindful equivalent of that would be to start having some mindful moments throughout the day where we sort of catch our minds acting in a way or reacting in a way that isn't conducive to our well-being. So like, for example, in the, anger, anger's a good example for that. Okay, and so we have our ski progression. At this point, we're up to our first turns in snowboarding, maybe a little bit of parallel in skiing. Here, the mindful moments happen more frequently, and we start to realize that we're rarely content. We're always thinking about how things could be different. And we're never really content and in the present moment. This is when we make big gains in the quality of our life, because we have the tool to correct for this and to come back to equanimity. So once we're skiing in parallel, once we have our basic turns, the mountain is unlocked. There's like so much more to do, right? That's where the fun really begins. Same with meditation. So keep coming back, keep practicing. At the start, I mentioned I might quiz you a little bit. So I want you to complete this sentence. And this is the kind of punchline to why we meditate. Okay? Are you ready? So, the quality of your mind determines the quality of your life. Well done, you've passed. Thanks for coming tonight. Awesome.